Greetings everyone, it's Marquee TV, and privileged to be here with a friend of mine today, scheduled impromptu visit. Mike Hendry from Hendry Vineyards in Napa Valley. We just had a little bit of a challenge focusing in because you see I'm standing on block because he's so damn tall. So I'm standing on some little platforms. Welcome Mike, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Great, good seeing you. Boy, Mike, Hendry Wines, you want to do a little brief history synopsis of Hendry?
The property that we have, all of the wines that we make come from our estate vineyard property. Most of that my grandparents bought in 1939. So as a family, we've been farming the same vineyard in Napa for more than 70 years, which is one of the things that is important to us. And we have, I think, an unusually diverse vineyard. So we grow 10 different kinds of grapes. We're at a transition point in the valley between what are predominantly Chardonnay and Pinot Noir areas and predominantly Cabernet. So we can do a lot of things there. We have 114 acres in vines that we have divided into many smaller blocks that are meant to, in one way or another, isolate variables that matter.
Okay.
So
there's a Canadian connection here because you're actually went to school. You were born in Canada.
I was born in California. Moved to Canada when I was 2. So
okay.
Grew up here.
And went to school in Alberta, but we won't hold that against them.
And Victoria.
And Victoria. Henry, they're growers, and their Cabernet, just for a little history, used to go into 2 wines historically, Mondavi Reserve and Opus, correct?
Yeah.
And then your Uncle George realized, yeah, this is pretty good grapes, we're going to start making their own. And,
yeah.
And that's what you did.
Yes, and there are a couple of factors there, certainly, that what we have is something that more than anything my uncle has been building for his entire life. But it's a long, slow process, and it takes a long time to develop vineyard, really bring it to maturity. He spent almost 30 years building a reputation for those grapes, and certainly he built a very good reputation for the grapes, but it is also very expensive to go from selling all your fruit to making it all into wine. So that was a process that took us around 10 years. So while it was something that I'm sure he would have always had on the horizon, it took a long time to make it happen.
Cool. So we're going to taste, we've got 4 wines, but we're just going to taste 2 of them, and things that you're known for. Zinfandel, Block 28. Let's discuss that. This is the 2007.
We make 2 Zinfandels and a Primitivo, so 3 Zinfandels if you want to talk about it that way. Those 3 wines to me are most importantly clonal expressions of that grape, so clonal variation in wines of all kinds is a big topic. I think people often discuss clonal variation in Pinot Noir, but less often in Zinfandel, but our experience is certainly that it's a very important part of the winemaking. The cuttings for Block 28 came from the Branlin Vineyard on Mount Beater, which when we used to lease that vineyard, and it made a very distinct style of wine. I think some of our experience was that some of the things we associated with the Branlin Vineyard certainly transferred when we grafted cuttings to Block 28. So it makes a wine that we think of as being a little more Cabernet-like. It's a structured, very structured kind of a Zinfandel.
100% Zin, right?
Yes.
So here's the interesting thing. When you consumers, when you buy Zinfandels out there, and you think it's there's a real brightness to the color, to the wines, a big richness. That's because they always put like 10% Petit Syrah to bolster up the color. So when you see a wine, I mean, if you look at this, I mean, it's got good dark blue-black fruits, but it's not that super red, and that's 100% Zinfandel. And you're going to have always a different little flavor characteristics on 100% Zin versus field blends that have maybe Carignan, Petit Syrah, or some Mourvèdre in them, which happens in California.
Yeah. Although it doesn't, Zinfandel, there was certainly a time when it was the most widely planted grape in Napa. Actually, less than 2% of Napa is Zinfandel now, which is, I think, a really significant number. So there are a few of those old and interplanted vineyards around in Napa, so that the Hain Vineyard would be one, the Moore Vineyard would be one, but there aren't many others.
Okay, let's move on to that Cabernet Sauvignon 2005. Let's talk about it.
2005 to me made a it's a Cabernet that I enjoy a lot. I think in terms of our wines, it has more fruit than many of them do. It has a real sort of distinct red fruit. It's now, I think, sort of reaching it's coming into its window of you know, best drinkability. I find it interesting that it was relatively recently that good Cabernets from Napa were things that you started to drink when they were 10 years old.
Right.
There's certainly been a push to make Napa Cabernet something that you drink as younger wines, and really from a winemaking style, in my opinion, that means you're trying to make Cabernets that are lighter and fruitier. And I think that this is a more sort of classic style of Napa Cabernet than some that you see these days.
Your site's a cool site.
Yeah,
Cooler site
comparatively.
comparatively. You can taste this in the wine. There's a black olive tapenade note
Yeah.
versus that over-rich, high alcohol content that you get. In some Napa cabs.
Yeah.
It's got a savory note to it. It's kind of refreshing to drink. It's a little bit different than you find in your regular Napa cabs. I like it a lot. This is why I like this wine. I've always liked this wine. It's always a good value considering you get some $200 wines in Napa Valley.
Yeah.
Anyway, if any of you want a different Napa Valley experience, I highly suggest. Oh, we got another wine. Ooh, the red wine. I love this one.
Yeah. I do too.
This is the secret weapon. This is the secret weapon that Hendry has. This is their red wine, and it's a blend. You got to refresh me. I know it has Malbec in it.
It's a Bordeaux varietal blend. Its ingredients certainly vary from year to year, but the common thread is that it's not the typical Cabernet and Merlot blend that you so often see in Napa. The biggest ingredients are Petit Verdot and Malbec. So in this case, it's 30% Petit Verdot, 26 Malbec, and then roughly 15 each of Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Merlot. So I think stylistically it is kind of midway between the Zinfandels and the Cab. It has some of that Zinfandel fruit, but some of the structure and range of the Cab.
It's got a nervosity to it. You know what I'm saying? It's because Petit Verdot and Malbec, especially Petit Verdot, has it's an acidity to it.
Yeah.
And it's got this I can't call it a nervous note to it. I like it.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. And I think they're great wines. If you're in Napa Valley, I was saying this a little earlier, if you want a different wine experience other than Silverado and Highway 29, email Mike, get on their website, email and ask for an appointment, and they're more than happy to show you around, show you a little different experience of Napa Valley. Thanks for listening. Cheers.